I'm Sherry Kendall, and welcome to Hometown Salutes. Today I have a very important guest. His name is Dr. Terence Grogan. Welcome, Terence.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Pontiac, Michigan, and spent most time in the Pontiac Waterford area in Michigan. My parents, my mom was from Pennsylvania, my dad was from Georgia, and they met in Michigan after World War II.
Oh, wow.
They both went to work for the auto industry in Michigan.
Okay. So at what point did you decide to go into the service?
Well, when I was in high school, I originally was going to go to the Naval Academy, but I spent a summer at Michigan State, and I liked it so much I decided to go there instead. But my dad was in the Navy during World War II, so that was kind of my motivation,
Okay. So what age did you go into the Navy?
So I went to Michigan State, and right out of Michigan State, I went into the Navy. Went to Officer Candidate School in Newport, Rhode Island, and was on active duty after that.
Okay. So you're a little bit older going in?
Yeah.
Okay. So where did you do basic training?
Well, officers don't really do basic training, so Newport, Rhode Island is where Officer Candidate School is. So I did that, and then after that, I went to the USS Mount Whitney, which was the 2nd Fleet Commander's flagship, and I spent a few months there, and then they sent me to Surface Warfare Officer School in Newport, Rhode Island, and I spent like 4 months there studying ships and weapon systems, and even the Soviet weapon systems and all that, and went back to the command ship and spent 3 years there, and then from there I went to California to go to the Naval Postgraduate School. And I spent 3 years there and got a master's in electrical engineering. And from there they sent me to New Jersey to work in the Aegis weapons systems, and then I applied to medical school there and got accepted and got the Armed Forces Medical School scholarship, and went to medical school after that.
Oh, wow. So what made you decide to change routes and go into the medical field?
Well, I had always actually wanted to do that. That was one of the reasons I didn't go to the Naval Academy, because at the time they weren't really having a pre-med program. Later on they ended up doing that, but not then. And so I was pre-med at Michigan State, and when I was getting close to graduation, I really didn't have the money to apply to medical school. So a good friend of mine, he was going in to be a pilot, and so I went to the recruiter with him, and he talked me into going into surface warfare, because I didn't have 20/20 vision, so I couldn't fly. So that's why I didn't do that.
All right. So where were you stationed at?
So mostly Norfolk for the most part. So I spent, my first ship was in Norfolk, and then after I went to California, Monterey, California, to school, and then I spent time in New Jersey, where I met Deb, my wife. And then, let's see, we went from Naval Postgraduate School, I went to New Jersey, and then I went to medical school in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And then from there we went to Norfolk to the medical center in Portsmouth, Virginia, and I did my internship there. And then I went out to sea on the USS Nashville as the medical officer. That's where I went to Jerusalem on that tour. And I spent 2 years on the Nashville as the medical officer. And we did a 6-month, during that time, 6-month deployment to the Mediterranean and that. So we went to Israel, and we went to Spain and Portugal and Turkey.
Wow.
It seems like there was a couple other places. Greece, we went to Greece. And so after that tour, I went to Pensacola to do my residency in family medicine. So that took 2 years. We did that. And we went back to Norfolk to the medical center, the Portsmouth Medical Center. I spent, I think, 2 years there. And then I went to the USS Saipan as the senior medical officer, and I finished my career on that ship.
So your career, how long are we talking?
So I swore in on, I think, October 21st, 1981, and I retired January 1st, 2006. So
Wow.
however long that is.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I've got 5.5 years of sea duty.
Wow.
Yeah.
So during the time that you were in, what was going on? Did you ever, like, were we in during war during that time at all?
Yeah, well, there was Grenada was something that happened while I was on the Mount Whitney, and so Commander 2nd Fleet is the one that planned that rescue operation of those students in Grenada. So he decided not to take his flagship. He transferred to the Guam and took the Guam. That was supposed to be a diversion kind of thing that they did, and so I didn't get to go on that. Just his staff went, and then the first and second Desert Storm occurred during that time when we were on our deployment on the USS Nashville. That's when we attacked Kosovo, so I was involved in that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I remember the night when all the Tomahawk missiles came cruising past. You know, it was kind of interesting.
I was going to say, how was that?
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. And so I think I was on a satellite phone to Deb, actually, and when that started. And so, and she thought she knew where we were, but we weren't where she thought the news told her we were.
That's scary.
Yeah, and so let's see. So 9/11, I was at the Naval Medical Center, Portsmouth, and then so that's why I wanted to go on Saipan, because I wanted to get involved in you know, basically Desert Storm 2, I guess. And and that ship was, I asked the detailer to send me to a ship that was going that way, and the Saipan was supposed to go, and then after I got there, they canceled those orders, and we ended up going to doing a rescue mission in Haiti at the time. So it wasn't what I had hoped for, but
Oh, wow.
but never works out exactly
Yeah.
the way.
So, like, being a doctor on a ship, I mean, how... I mean, I'm sure things get chaotic and crazy.
Well,
I
the biggest thing, like sometimes when you're sailing alone, so there's not other ships with you, get a lot of calls from merchant ships sometimes that have medical emergencies, and they always seem to occur in the middle of the night. And so I got up a lot of times to talk to people on the radio, tell them what to do, or if I thought they needed to get, medevac somebody to the shore, and so that sometimes, there's always, people getting sick, people with appendicitis occasionally, and that. When we went to the Kosovo thing, we had Navy SEALs with us, so keeping them healthy was a big deal, and they were wonderful guys. They let me work out with them. I was in the best shape of my life, and so. There's a lot of downtime, and then there's some really exciting things all of a sudden happen. Usually somebody gets hurt. On the Saipan, we had a mom of 2 kids who was unhappy about being at sea away from her kids, and she kept jumping off the ship. I mean, that's, it's,
Oh, wow.
the Saipan was a helicopter amphibious ship, so it's like a small aircraft carrier, and it's quite a ways above sea level, so that's not a small jump. And she did it twice, and the captain said, "Look, they got a quit sending her back to us, so I had to get on the phone to the psychiatrist and say, look, she's serious, she keeps doing it. Maybe she doesn't want to really die, but she might end up dying if you don't keep her at the hospital. So they finally relented and kept her there.
Wow.
But, yeah. So they were, psychiatrists often would send people back to the ship I didn't really think belonged there, so it could make it dangerous for everybody.
Yep. So can you do like operations or anything when you're on the ship like that?
Yeah, on the Saipan, it had two functioning operating suites, and we had and we had a fleet surgical team would come aboard when we deployed, and they had a surgeon, a nurse, an anesthetist, and a few nurses, an internist that could handle critical care because we had a small ICU and a 40-bed hospital.
Okay.
So we had quite a bit of medical capability on that ship.
Okay. So do you want to share, is there, like, were you ever in a close call experience?
Well, not really. Not really. The thing about being at sea, it can be dangerous, but it's hard for the enemy to get to you necessarily. So nothing like that. I mean, we had people have accidents and stuff, and that. The only close call I had was we were on the island of Crete, and the air boss, he's the one that's in charge of all the helicopters and flight ops. He and we took a couple days off on Crete, and we stayed at a hotel that had this big gate, and they gave us a key to it, and we could not open that gate. And so we climbed the wall, and I fell off of it and hurt my leg. And I wouldn't let anybody x-ray because I didn't want to go home, because if it was broken, they would send me home. So I hobbled around for a few weeks until it got better.
So it wasn't broke then?
I don't think so, but we'll
You'll never tell.
know.
So what was one of the favorite places that you visited overseas?
Portugal, I liked Portugal. Israel was good. Turkey was interesting. It's interesting. We got hazardous duty just for being in Turkey because it's a high level of terrorist threat in Turkey for some reason, and but that was interesting. A lot of religious sites there. There was the area where Mary went, after they crucified Jesus and lived out her life, supposed to be there, Ephrata and all that. So we got to see that, and some ancient Roman ruins that were there. That was kind of interesting. And Greece was interesting. And Spain, we spent a lot of time in Malaga, Spain, went to a bullfight. That was kind of interesting.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
So going into the Navy, were you married yet?
Yeah.
Okay. So how is being married and making a career in the Navy, how does that work out? Good. You're still together.
Well, that's she wasn't the first. We weren't together when I first went in the Navy.
Okay.
I was married before. But so it can be tough. It depends. The spouses, they are often underappreciated because they kind of keep everything going in the home front, and that could be a tough job, especially with kids and that. And it's worse now because they don't. When I was on active duty, 6 months, that was the longest deployments there were. And they did that for a reason, because they were having a hard time recruiting people because it was too tough being away longer than that. Mm-hmm. And 6 months is hard enough. And
now do they do it longer?
Yeah, some people. Actually, there's some people that are really in National Guard or reserves. They get called up and they can be gone for a year. and I think that's too long for a family. It's really hard, really hard for families. And that, like sometimes when the kids we get together for holidays, they start talking about a holiday, and I don't remember it because I wasn't there.
Aw.
You know, so I was gone. You know, so that happens a lot. And I spent one Thanksgiving in Cuba. That was probably the worst Thanksgiving I ever had. But yeah, so you miss a lot of holidays, you miss a lot of important family events and stuff like that, so it can be tough.
That's hard. Yeah. So, was your wife supportive during your time in the service?
Yeah. She you know, kept the kids going and kept everything running at home while I was gone.
Could she visit? Could they visit?
They could have. I think a couple wives did, but I mean that's hard to do with kids, you know, unless you have somebody. We're both only children, so we didn't really have any relatives to stick the kids with, or for her to come visit. But yeah, some wives did do that occasionally, but not very often though.
So tell us a little bit about your family. What's everybody doing now?
Well, our oldest son, he has two children, 10 and 4, and they live in Alabama. He graduated from Auburn University. He's working for a transit company in a small town in Alabama, and his wife works for Alabama Department of Transportation. And our middle son, he's a marketing product manager. He's a product manager for Takis, that really spicy Mexican chips that they have, you know. And he just won an award for that, as a matter of fact. And then our youngest son, he's a software engineer. He's kind of between jobs now because he kind of was victim of that cutbacks in the tech industry, so he's looking for another job. But he was working as a developer for, you know, apps for Android phones is what he was doing. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what are some life lessons that you've learned from your time in the military?
Well, I did a lot of different things, so I know that you know, you can do just about anything you put your mind to doing, you know, and that a lot of things you know, that I had to do were hard, and you know, I probably when I was younger didn't think I could do as much as I did, you know, but I learned that I could.
Yeah.
You know, and I really think military service, our oldest son, he was an Army Ranger for a while, but he's the only one that wanted to do any military service. But I really think it's a good thing for people to do. I mean, I wouldn't have done it any different if I had to go back and do it over again.
So you said your father was World War II?
Yeah.
So did he make a career
No.
of it?
No, I'm the only one in the family.
You're the only?
Everybody, all my uncles on both sides of the family served in one capacity or another, in one service or another, you know, from World War II to Vietnam, and actually I guess I had an uncle served in World War I. So, but none of them made a career out of it.
Okay.
I was the only one.
So are you able to keep in touch with any of your military friends?
Yeah. I was keeping in touch with some, one of the corpsmen that worked for me at the Navy Medical Center, Portsmouth. He's now a family doctor, and that he went to Michigan State. He kind of followed in my footsteps. I couldn't get my boys to do it, but I got some of them. But,
That's awesome.
So, and one young guy, he was a corpsman of mine, he, this makes me feel really old, he retired as a senior chief not too long ago, and he went and he actually saw combat with the Marines in Iraq, so, but luckily he came out of it okay, and he's married and has a couple kids now. And one of my buddies from the Mount Whitney, the first ship I was on, he calls once in a while. I'm not good, I'm bad about keeping in touch with people, but luckily a lot of them keep in touch with me. So, so he calls me once in a while, and he ended up getting out of the Navy. Probably, I think he spent like 8 years in, and he got out. But he calls once in a while, and he kind of keeps me up to date on other people that we knew.
So you guys never have really get-togethers like?
No, I haven't. We haven't done that. No, we keep talking about it. That friend of mine, we keep talking about again. They live in Virginia, him and his wife, and that. But we haven't made it down there. He hasn't made it here yet. So, but every time we talk. We got to do that, but we haven't made it happen yet. So, but Facebook and LinkedIn makes it a little bit easier to keep in touch with people.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I have kept in touch with a few people.
That's awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit your timeline of how you ended up in Fayette County?
Oh, well, I was working for a hospital system in Battle Creek, Michigan, and I didn't really care for that job very much, and I didn't really like the hospital system. Hospital administrators, most of them are not physicians, and they I think try to influence doctors too much, and so well, Mike lives in Alabama, and at the time, Sam, our youngest, was going to stay in Michigan, so we wanted to get somewhere that was sort of in between those two places, right? So this was pretty close to halfway between, so it makes the drive to Alabama not so bad, and it's not that far back up to Michigan, So some, recruiter, mentioned here, and so we came here, and we liked it, and so we decided to come here. And then Sam, of course, decided to go to Dallas and blew the whole thing,
Oh.
so now we have 2 in Dallas and 1 in Alabama. So, but that's how we ended up here. We're shooting for Nashville, Tennessee, but we didn't quite make it there.
Oh, funny.
But yeah. So that's kind of how we were here. I went to work for Fayette, of course, and that closed down. And again, I think that was an administrator problem that could have all been avoided with somebody that knew what they were doing and what was needed here. I thought it was bad that he didn't live here. He didn't know the community. So what he should have brought into this hospital was bread and butter medicine is what you need here. And he tried to do, the rehab center and all that stuff is, a nice idea, but a small place like this, I don't know and it didn't work, So, so I decided, we didn't want to move anymore because we're tired of moving. And so that's why I decided to do my own practice, and I've been happy doing that. It's tough to make it go financially of a private practice nowadays, but I enjoy it more.
Yeah. And you can I think you can spend more quality time with patients. I mean, I always hear, when you're connected with somebody, you're just in and out.
Yeah, that's a bad way to. I mean, I feel bad sometimes. We've gotten really busy that I try to spend a lot of time with people, but unfortunately, then people are waiting, and I hate that. But I don't know how else to do it. I think that time is well spent. Talking to people, and hospital administrators. It's all about the numbers to them.
Yep. Does your wife work in the practice with you?
She did for a while, but she has her own projects she works on now. She's involved in church and the Tri Kappa thing and that, so she keeps herself busy that way. But she'll help out if I need her.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you have a great staff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm very lucky, very blessed to have all of them. Very lucky.
So is there anything else that you want to kind of touch on before we close up? Is there anything that we didn't talk about that?
Well, let me think. I think that we really have enjoyed being here. I think the people here are very friendly and helpful, and that's why we like it here, you know. And so we feel blessed to be here, you know.
Yeah.
So.
That's how we were. I'm a transplant too, so we came from Cincinnati, and it's just something so special about the people here. I mean, you just feel welcomed.
Yeah.
And they kind of wrap their arms around you, and you can feel it.
Yeah, and this reminds me a lot of a smaller version of Pontiac, actually, because it was, I know there's a lot of people that have relatives from Kentucky here, and when I was growing up in Michigan, it was mostly people that had migrated there from other states, a lot of them from the South, like my dad was from Georgia. And when I was a kid, I didn't think anybody actually was from Michigan originally until I got to like high school. I think it's the first time I met somebody whose parents were from Michigan. And it reminds me a lot, because a lot of people came here to work in the Ford factory, and there they went to work for Pontiac Motors. And so it reminds me a lot of a home like that.
Yeah. Do your kids get to come? Do they come visit very often?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Our middle son, Trevor, he was home for Christmas. He's the only one that made it home for Christmas this year. But the year before, well, it was 2 years before, we went, all of them came. It was the first time they all been home for the holidays, you know. And so, yeah, they've come and stayed for a little bit. Sam got married here, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, we'd just gotten here. We hadn't been here that long, I think a year, and he came to the house, and we had his wedding there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's neat. Well, Dr. Grogan, I want to thank you for sharing your experience today in the service. I want to thank you for your service and your sacrifice, and to make a career out of it. That's awesome.
That was my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So be sure to tune in next month for another edition of Hometown Salutes.